think, there were several problems that, brought about this broad-based government. The government, the Kenya Kwanza government was dysfunctional. It was imploding because of activities within that political formation. And in the country, there was a lot of dissatisfaction with, the cost of living. And this, as you see, it is not just this year, from last year, there were demonstrations. People died, some were injured, properties were destroyed. And there was an opportunity to try and bring the country together through the NADCO process. Unfortunately, before we could see the light at the end of the tunnel, there was again an upswing of protests, popularly under the auspices of the Gen Zs. And, the country was becoming ungovernable. So I think it was important to try and find a mechanism for bringing peace and unity back so that the country can now deal with the root causes of the problems that led to last year's demonstrations and the Gen Z demonstrations this year. Now, the broad-based government is not necessarily a coalition government. In fact, it's not a coalition government. One cannot say that ODM as a party has become part of a ruling coalition. What has happened is certain persons within the party who had been approached to assist the current government in trying to not only manage its affairs, but to create, as you say, a broad-based government. The party agreed and said, you can become part of the government. The party will give support without necessarily surrendering its role as the minority party in parliament or as the opposition. At the same time, the party ODM will not retire from its constitutional duties of oversight. The question of legislation and representation goes across all the parties, the duty of all the parties and members of parliament to undertake those functions. But when it comes to oversight and by a constitutional construct, the leadership of the organs within parliament, the committees, the oversight committees, it was by necessity and by design that those committees had the leadership and chairmen or chairpersons coming from the party in opposition. So ODM is still the minority party. The elements of ODM have been invited to be part of the government. We think there's a national agenda as contained in the NADCO report and other issues that have emerged that will require a resolution in a structured manner. I, for one, am waiting for that time to come when not just the political parties, but all the stakeholders could be able to sit down and deal with the root causes of some of the problems that led to the demonstrations that we saw last year and this year. By the way, it is not unheard of, people going into government formed by adversaries. In the United States of America, during the Clinton administration, and even during the Bush administration, you had elements from key figures from the Democratic Party serving in the Republican government. Yeah, and nobody said that, you know, the Democratic Party has joined the Republican Party, or that the Republican Party has joined the Democratic Party. And even members of the party affected, be it Democrats or Republicans, you know, were assumed or presumed to have become part of government.
Wow, that's interesting, because I think that's a point a lot of Kenyans are missing, because argument out there is that ODM has betrayed Kenyans. There are people who keep saying that the Honorable Raila Odinga, who is a party leader of the ODM party, has let down Kenyans a big deal. So I think your explanation puts that to rest. But again, isn't this arrangement going to jeopardize the work of the minority party in parliament? For instance, someone is asking, how can, in the spirit of comradeship, how can a member of the ODM party question what his former deputy party leader is doing in the ministry that they have been given?
No, those people are completely ignorant of the constitutional construct. Parliament is independent and distinct and separate from the executive. For example, the role of Parliament of oversight, under the Constitution, they have a duty to oversight the government as a parliament. As a parliament. We are not in a parliamentary system where members of the executive serve in parliament, where you can say the government is in parliament. Or, you know, the Westminster model, you know, the government is actually, the executive is in parliament. Now we are going to add completely different construct where the executive is not in parliament. And a lot of the leadership, most of the leadership in parliament of the committees are, you know, are from the party in government, because they have a majority in parliament. There are situations that are going to arise where, you know, like we had during the Grand Coalition government, where, you know, before we became part of the Grand Coalition, ODM had more members in parliament than the party of government. So these situations are dynamic and can arise. So it is Parliament to fulfill its constitutional obligations to provide legislation, representation and oversight. And it's not representation of the government. Members of Parliament represents the people and the counties, so to speak. So I think once we know how that system should operate, and this is not just akin to Kenya, even the United States of America, you know, the Congress is distinct from the executive, and nobody questions, you know, the role of that constitutional duty that the Congress has. Although every political party would want to operate with the majority in Parliament or in Congress, so that there's not disharmony and dysfunction. But again, there are dangers when a party in power is overrepresented in Parliament.